Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy, episode 57. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and I gotta tell you something. I have been delaying on recording this podcast episode for you because I got all in my head. Yep, it happens to the best of us. I wanted to, in the month of January, release to you an entire series of Getting Started podcast launch episodes. I was going to record everything that you needed to know to get your show started off on the right foot and put them up on my Patreon account, which is at thecreativeimposter.com/craft and culture, which you could access for $5 per month, meaning that you could go through the whole thing in 1 month and just pay $5 for the whole course and then cancel it if you wanted to. Or you could take as long as you need to go through that whole Getting Started course. And the first episode of that course would be available for you right here for free forever on Podcast Envy. So you could get a taste of it and see if this was exactly the resource that you needed to finally get your show out there. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, Andrea, I've already launched my show. I've been publishing episodes. I don't need a podcast launch course. Okay, well, this confession isn't totally for you, but it is kind of for you because there may be some things in my launch materials that you haven't yet considered. Why? Because perhaps you already followed a free tutorial that you found online or even a paid tutorial that you found from someone. And if there is something that I have come to realize as your podcast boss, not every tutorial is created equally. And some are very bare bones and technical, some are much more theoretical. And, well, each one of us who is doing podcast launch coaching and consulting has sort of a different take or a different opinion or a different spin on things. And God forbid you learned how to start your podcast by going into Facebook group forums and posting questions there and getting a response by committee. You know what I mean. If you've ever posted a question in any of those Facebook groups, even not the podcasting ones, for any topic, and everyone chimes in with their advice and you get a whole bunch of mixed messages. This is my favorite. No, that one's the worst. Try this one. Free is better. No, free is terrible. You know what? It's super hard to get a consensus by committee, especially a committee of strangers. Anyway, I digress. I was dragging my feet on recording the whole dang series, and especially on recording episode 1, because even though I have been teaching Getting Started classes quarterly for a couple of years now, and even though I have privately coached a large handful of new podcasters to get their show launched, and even though I myself have launched multiple shows, I just could not get all of my thoughts organized in a way that A, felt useful, and B, felt compelling. I kept getting so bored. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to motivate myself to record this Getting Started series? And then I realized, I'm your podcast boss. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do because I'm the boss. And so instead of trying to figure out how to motivate myself to create this thing that I clearly did not want to make, instead, I turned my inquiry around on myself and thought, self, what is it about this series that is not inspiring you, that makes it feel like work instead of fun? Because I gotta be honest, the day that podcasting stops being fun, I'm gonna have to go find a different title for myself. I'm not gonna be able to be your podcast boss anymore. Which is not to say that we love every aspect of podcasting all the time, but just to say that in general, there is absolutely no reason for me to be trying to bang my head against the wall to create content that I don't feel like creating. So I'm not going to leave you hanging, new and aspiring podcasters, and I'm not going to bore you to death, already podcasting podcasters. I have a plan. And this plan is much more invigorating for me, and so that is how I know I am on the right track. I don't need to give you a step-by-step, dry, boring, bare bones tutorial on how to launch your podcast because there actually already are enough good, reliable, free, most of the time, resources out there for you. And the other thing is that like the tech recommendations in terms of microphone, in terms of software, in terms of that stuff kind of changes. So if I were to record it now and tell you exactly what to use, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, it could be totally obsolete and I might be recommending something else. So here's my plan. And there's my podcast angel music. I have selected a date for us to meet online, in which I will share with you everything that I share in my quarterly Launch Your Own podcast class in Chicago, with a few extra little bonus exercises. When you sign up for Craft and Culture over at thecreativeimposter.com/craft and culture. This is facilitated via Patreon. Anybody can sign up. $5 a month. Cancel after 30 days if you want and you've only spent $5. Or keep going and you'll get even more goodies and bonuses from me. Or you can upgrade your membership to the VIP, that is VIP for Very Important Podcaster, status at $49 per month. At either of these levels, you will receive an invitation from me to join me on this date in February to learn everything you basically need to know to launch your show. What is the difference? Now, all of you will be able to join me live in the moment. And if you join me live in the moment, you will be able to ask all the questions that you have that we can answer in the allotted time, specific to your show and your needs. All of you will have access to the replay. If you cannot join live on the date and time, you will be able to watch the replay, at which point you will not be able to ask customized questions. However, at the $5 a month level, you will be able to send me your questions, and I will create Craft and Culture podcast episodes on a secret podcast feed just for you with answers to those questions. It just won't be immediate. If you are at the $49 per month VIP level, you will have more access to me. You can send me those same questions, and I will turn around a response much faster during posted office hours. And also, once a month, you will receive an invitation to a live Zoom chat with me, in which case we can discuss your questions back and forth in real time. Also, if you join at the $49 a month VIP level, you will get one complimentary 20-minute sesh with me, one-on-one, to help clarify the vision and the plan for your show moving forward. Because really, that's what's fun to me. What's fun to me is customizing answers, is actually learning about and thinking about your show specifically and coming up with solutions and resources specifically for you. That's what excites me about being your podcast boss, not just creating generic information that may or may not be accurate to what it is that you actually need. Once again, you can get access to all of this at thecreativeimposter.com/craft and culture. It is linked, of course, in the show notes for this episode at thecreativeimposter.com/podnv057. For those of you who are already podcasting, there may be some things about your show that you're not sure whether you did them right, or not even right, but like the best way possible. Are there some things that you missed? Could you be doing certain things better or differently? And we can cover all of those questions as well. The idea behind Craft and Culture is that it will help support you at whatever level or stage of podcasting you happen to be at. Ugh. Terrible grammar. And so this is much more fun and exciting and inspiring to me. Now, the date for our Podcast Envy Launch Your Own Show live online class is going to be Sunday, February 23rd. Sunday, February 23rd. And so you only have a couple of weeks to sign up, depending on when you are listening to this. And if you happened to miss Sunday, February 23rd, by the time you're listening to this, and you want to do something like that, send me a message and maybe I'll schedule another one in the future. Okay, so like I said, rather than trying to make this episode the first episode in the Launch Your Own Show podcast and giving you the standard spiel that I give about what you need to think about for starting your own show, I want to tell you a secret. And that secret is that you are an agent of change. Your voice is the instrument for that change, and your show is an amplifier for your instrument. Whether you are thinking of your show as a hobby, a passion project, a platform, a marketing tool for your business, a community outreach program, a platform for your organization, or a business model unto itself, you have chosen to be here, and you have chosen to be here for a reason. I mean, you could have picked anything. You could have picked a blog. You could have picked an email newsletter. You could have picked a book. You could have picked a YouTube channel. You could have picked TikTok for all I know, but you chose podcasting. And so I want you to clear your head. I want you to clear your head of all thoughts of monetization, downloads, sponsors, stats, growing your audience, marketing, all that stuff. And I want you to look deep into your heart and ask yourself, what is the change that you want to make? What is the change that you want to make? And how can you do this in your own best possible way? What is the change that you want to make? And how can you do this in your best possible way? Okay, don't panic. I know you may have started to feel nervous, maybe butterflies in your stomach, maybe sweaty palms. Maybe you're scratching your head trying to figure out what on earth you stumbled into when you clicked this episode. You thought we were going to talk about microphones and headphones and recording and software and gear and podcast hosting companies, and we are talking about none of those things in this moment. What we are talking about is your why. And very often in my classes, I will describe this why for why you are creating a show along the lines of what is it that you want to get out of creating your show, and what is it that you want your listeners to get out of listening to your show. And this is the value proposition. This is the energy exchange. This is what, when things are in balance and in flow, is going to feel really good and keep you motivated to keep making content and producing your show. And when it's out of balance or out of flow, you're going to get stuck. You're going to have issues. You're going to feel frustrated. And that's when we need to go back into that equation and realign so that you will keep going, so that you will not pod fade. You will not give up after 7 episodes. Say this with me. Once I launch, I will not give up after 7 episodes. And this why is what is going to guide all of your decisions creatively, technically, logistically, from a budget perspective, from a marketing perspective. And yes, what you personally want to get out of producing your show and what you want your listeners to get out of listening to your show is important. It is part of it. But I have recently, very recently, after years of podcasting, come to the realization that podcasting works best. It is most effective when you are using it to create some kind of change. And no, this doesn't have to be the Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world. It doesn't have to mean solving world hunger or fixing the planet's environment or even figuring out what the heck with our current American political system or whatever political system you happen to be a part of. It doesn't have to be that big of a scale. You don't have to get all overwhelmed in this moment, although maybe it is on that grand of a scale, and then peace be with you and more power to you. But change can come in so many different ways. You might say, but Andrea, I'm not an impact podcaster. I don't have a social agenda. I'm not trying to motivate millions to live a better life or create a better society. I have a sales podcast. I'm trying to help sales professionals make more sales. Well, isn't that change? Isn't that change because you see other people in your field making mistakes? You see other people in your field struggling with the same things over and over again. You know that you have a solution for them or a point of view or a perspective that they haven't considered yet that's going to make them feel more successful, more empowered. And I don't care what the heck they're selling. That's not the point. The point is that there is a status quo. You see a better way. You want to help people make the change. Therefore, you use your voice, your story, your ideas, your experience, your expertise, and your insight And you amplify that by creating a show so that more and more and more people can be impacted by this positive change. And right now, in this moment, I cannot think of a better amplifier, a better platform, a better way of sharing this content, this type of content, than by having a podcast. And so, whether you have or have not launched your show yet, I would encourage you to take a moment, look inside. What is the change that you want to make? What is your desire? What is your passion? And if you're already podcasting, how are you already doing that? Are you aligned with that vision, with that change? Is it working? Are there parts of it that are working? Are there things that you could be doing differently or better that might make an even bigger or more profound impact? And if you haven't launched your show, how can we design your show from square one so that you can start to make that change right away from the get-go? I do want to say one caveat here. When I started podcasting, when I launched The Creative Imposter, my first show, I actually didn't really have a clear vision on this. Does that mean I should not have launched at that time, that I should have done more journaling, more meditation, more market research, more whatever it is that you do to get clear on this change that you want to make? No, of course not. I launched it at exactly the right moment for me, at exactly the right time. The change that I did know I wanted to make was that I was struggling. I had just closed my first business. I had just filed bankruptcy. I was in the bottom of a funk of depression, and I did not know what to do next. I did not know how to motivate myself. I did not know how to keep going. And this seed of an idea of podcasting had been planted in my mind long ago, before I had hit rock bottom, before I had filed bankruptcy, before I had closed the business. It had been planted. And in that moment that I did not know what to do next, that's what kept pinging to the top. You could start a podcast. Maybe now's the time to start a podcast. You could podcast. I bet you could figure that out. And so the change I wanted to make when I started that show was deeply personal. And that's okay. I didn't have to know anything else. That was enough to get me started. And then things unfolded from there. And then my desire for change grew and expanded and morphed into something completely different. And my desire for change with Podcast Envy is even different than my desire with The Creative Imposter, is different from Power Your Story, which is the show that I produce with my high school students, which is different than any of the shows that I've helped clients to launch or that I help clients to edit. But with each show, there is a change happening within that showrunner's community, industry, audience. And when there's a question, when there's a doubt, when there's a snag, when there's a problem, the answer always comes back to, what do we want to change? And how can we best make that change? I'm really curious to hear what your change is. What is the change that you want to make? And how can you do that in your best possible way? Because how it looks for you might be different than how it looks for me. And it might be different from how it looks for this other person who makes a show that you really like. And that's what I'm here to help you do. That's what I'm here to help you figure out. I'm really curious to hear the answers to your questions. So whether or not you join me over at thecreativeimposter.com/craft and culture, and I hope you do, send me a message. You can email me, Andrea@thecreativeimposter.com, and let me know. I'd love to hear what you're working on. Also, quick side note, I have been promoting the fact that I will be speaking and presenting a session at PodFest in Orlando this March 2020. If you are already going to PodFest, I can't wait to see you there. Please come find me. Please meet me. My session is Sunday morning. It is called Let Your Voice Shine, and it is all about how to better use this instrument that you have for change through the amplifier of your podcast. If you are thinking of coming to PodFest March 6th through 8th and you have not yet committed, please know that I still have a free pass available for you if you want it. I've been asking for you to send me a short piece of audio in order to enter the giveaway for this pass, and you know what? I got 0 entries. So I still have this pass sitting here. I'm happy to give it to you. Just send me a message. You just need to confirm that you are able to get yourself there and find housing and that you will, in fact, be attending, and the pass is yours. One final reminder that live Launch Your Own Show online class is going to be Sunday, February 23rd. And hey, BT Dubs, if you happen to be in Chicago and you want to take that class live and in person rather than or in addition to online, I am going to be teaching a private group session Tuesday, February 18 at 6:30 p.m. at the Wing, Chicago in the Fulton Market neighborhood. That class is typically only open to members of the Wing, which is a women's co-working space. However, I have a handful of passes that I can invite whomever I please to come join us. And so if you want one of those passes for the in-person session in Chicago, Tuesday, February 18th, email me ASAP, Andrea@thecreativeimposter.com, and I shall make it so. I'm looking forward to connecting with you in person, online, or via email. I want to know, what's your change? Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.